Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Maxwell Construction, who has been our sponsor since the very beginning. For over 30 years, Maxwell has delivered the highest quality projects by holding to their core values of customer satisfaction, positive attitude, respect, and excellence. So if you have any kind of commercial construction need, give Maxwell Construction a call today at 812-537-2200. Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and I'm here with my husband, Merle. Hi, honey.
Hello, Linda. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm good. Yeah. Ready for the holidays.
They are upon us. That's
Yes,
good.
yes.
That's good. You're ready to go. Actually, we're pretty chill here for at least Thanksgiving Day, right? I mean, or at least as it was.
Well,
we were just hanging out with chicken noodle soup.
Well, that's because things got riled up later in the weekend. So
Yeah. All right. But we had fun.
hopefully everybody had a good Thanksgiving. And if you struggled this holiday and you didn't listen to our last week's show, I really encourage you to go back because we have a lot of holidays left. And really, it's important to be in that right mindset, just to make sure that you don't just survive or, trudge through the holidays, but thrive and enjoy them.
You know what I like the best out of the keys, the 6 keys?
Which one's that?
Set your expectations low. I just like that idea. Just just stop amping up everything that has to happen and just go, I'm just going to not expect a lot
And
this
actually,
year.
that's moms. That's moms. We're so guilty of that, of just wanting so much packed into that, or the expectation of what people think or what it looks like. It's not worth it. It's not worth the stress.
Because nothing can live up to it. And so now you start to fall short, and then you get disgusted and frustrated. It's like, expect very little. and even if you see a little bit of sunshine, it'll be all you need.
Well, and the problem is you make everybody else miserable around you. And I hate that. I want there to be an enjoyable, holiday and time together.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
That was last show. All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Got a question for you.
Uh-oh.
If you remember a couple weeks ago, we had I think it was a Powerball lottery that was like, 1.7, $1.8 billion.
Yeah. I mean, if you're listening to this in our archives, you probably...
I mean, I bought $10,000 worth. No, I don't even have $10,000. But you think...
You didn't buy one.
Not even, yeah. Why didn't you win? Well, you didn't even buy one. Okay,
Yeah.
but let's just imagine you bought that one ticket and you won. Okay? And you won. That won almost $2 billion.
Yeah.
All right? What would you do with it concerning your kids?
I like how you put that in there, my kids.
Yeah.
You're assuming I'm sticking around.
Did you guys hear that? Right here, we had a public admission. I think I'm getting dumped.
Oh,
Are you going to take me? How about just you and I? And we leave.
Well, if our kids were a little older, be ready to be that empty nesting again.
Yeah, there went rock solid families. Merle and Linda are on some
I sometimes
desert island.
wonder why
Deserted island.
If that's the reason why the Lord is not
we would handle it well. We'd be irresponsible.
Well, and to answer your question, I honestly don't think I would tell anybody. I wouldn't tell you. Well, I probably would tell you. You'd have.
Wow. This is 2. That's 2, you guys. Like, she is leaving me at the curb.
No. I just feel like so much changes when there's money involved or when there's ulterior motives worried about. And I for sure would worry about the kids and just their, the temptation is so great. Even friendships, just family members. I don't like that feeling of you're doing this because you want something from me. And, so anyway.
Yeah, but it'd be so hard because honestly, like, even though sometimes our kids can aggravate us because they always want stuff, if you had that much money, I mean, if we're talking like knocking on the $1 billion deal, the idea that they want $180 pair of shoes versus $120 pair of shoes, is it really worth like you holding that out? I mean, you're kind of stingy with your billions.
Well, it's funny how you asked me the
That's
question,
right.
vice versa. But you know what? That does set us up perfectly for our show today because the title of the show is Just Because You Can doesn't mean you should. And so we're going to be talking about when you can, when you have the means, when you have the ability, when you have the resources, should you always do? And we're specifically talking about our kids and our grandkids, whether they're kids or adults, you know. Should we do a lot of the things we're doing if we could look down the road and kind of see the long-term effect of that? We're really talking about.
So guys, tune in, because this is going to be a great show. Gosh. It really is, because I would like to say that there was no need for it, but this sort of scenario comes in our office daily. Yeah, and so, and I think even if you don't relate to every single thing, you're going to see where you and I and Linda, we've all kind of gone off the track of what we thought our ultimate goal was, because maybe we had the ability, but should have we done it?
Okay, so I got a confession.
This could be number 3, guys. This could be number 3. This is probably, she's confessing another time she threw me to the curb.
No, and this is the typical thing we're talking about is, you know, I've mentioned it before on here that I have a little bit of a Dunkin' Donut addiction. And it's not really the donut part.
I like the way you qualified it with a little bit of
like, if they built a Dunkin' around us, I'd be so in trouble. I really do think we should get them as a sponsor, because we could really give them some business. But anyway, and I was out running errands today, and I thought to myself, oh, my head kind of hurts. I need some caffeine. And a Dunkin' a Dunkin' tea, just an unsweetened iced tea sounds really good right now and refreshing. And I really did. I didn't think about it till after I'm through, just because I could. And I drove by a Dunkin'. Like, I was 10 minutes away from coming home, and I could have made my own. But I didn't.
You stopped in and you broke.
But here's the deal. I have started to bring you one.
Oh, that's how she look. See, that's number 3. She relieves her own guilt through me.
By bringing you one too.
Yeah. See, look what I got for you, honey.
I know. It's true. And I really went, as I'm driving home and I'm thinking about the fact that we need to record today and what the show was about. I was like, now if I could have had that self-control and drove past Dunkin' and gone home and made my own iced tea, then I could have said, just because I could doesn't mean I should. And
well, I mean, I know we're going to get into a lot of this background, but you just kind of hit a switch on me. We are so able, like no other generations before us, to be able to create these fleshly comforts, whether it is the little tea, or whether it's how about another pair of shoes, or how about a jacket, or how about this, and it's not that we're filthy rich. It's just that we live in a place that even though we can complain about prices and all of that, it's more available now than ever before.
It's so convenient. Like, I literally was at the grocery, and I literally, on my Dunkin' app, ordered my drinks before I got to the store. Yeah. And I literally was able to...
you would have been a fool not to do that.
I didn't even have to wait in line. Yeah. It's so easy. Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah. So we're going to thank our sponsors, and then we're going to circle back around and see, okay, so what does this have to do with parenting and the long-term outcomes with our kids? Okay. Yeah. So I want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions, along with Maxwell Construction, for being part of the Rock Solid Family sponsorship program, and specifically into Rock Solid Radio. And so we thank those guys for their continued support of what we do here. So for any building needs or any decorating or landscaping needs, reach out to those guys. Your construction will be through Maxwell Construction, and any of your landscaping needs through Casey's Outdoor Solutions.
Yeah, speaking of Maxwell, we were invited to their annual employee dinner party, and you got a chance to speak, and you did an amazing job, man. I'll tell you what, you brought it. You brought the fire.
The fire? We look forward to the idea of pointing out how we can do better as families. So that was good.
Yeah. And as we close out 2022, we just want to remind you, Giving Tuesday is this week, and the whole season of the holidays is about just giving back and really just looking out for others. And so if we can be a recipient of that and allow us to be able to give back to others and be able to walk alongside families who maybe couldn't otherwise afford the mental health help help or the coaching or the counseling that they need, we would love to be that recipient just so that we can turn around and bless others. And we've had the opportunity to do that with thousands of families, and just this year, thousands of coaching sessions. So we would love for you to consider us at the end of the year in giving back.
Also, the last thing we just want to remind everybody is about our marriage program we call Rock Solid Marriages. And so whether you feel like you guys just need a shot in the arm to boost up the marriage, or whether you're struggling at a more significant level, we believe we have created a program that can help any marriage because it works from the fundamental building of this marriage, this relationship, and then how you work it from there, how you actually get the marriage to function. So please, if you are in any need of that, reach out to us. Again, you can go to our website and check out that program, Rock Solid Marriages. Our website is rocksolidfamilies.org. So go check it out. If we can help you out with that, we'd love to do that.
So I want to share a little bit of a background story as to really what I think of when I think of just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it came from a conversation I had years ago with a mom. And she and I were just kind of wasting time when our kiddos were somewhere. And she said something about being a yes mom. And she said, I grew up with a no mom. And she would say no all the time. And so I decided and committed when I got to be a parent and I had children that I was going to be a yes mom, and that I was going to say yes to everything I physically possibly could because I felt that no from my mom. And I think she wanted me to pat her on the back. And she wanted me to, cheer her on. But honestly, I was sad. I was sad by those words because I felt in my spirit this phrase that we're using as our title. And that is so true and what we're really talking about today. And that is just because you can say yes to a request or a want of your child doesn't mean you always should. And that's what we really have got to wake up, because our culture today is saying the exact opposite and almost kind of guilting you into the fact that if you say no to your child, you're some kind of abusive parent or you're just this neglectful mother. And that is just so untrue. I believe it's the reverse. I believe that we really cause more damage when we keep saying yes to things when we really should be saying no.
Yeah, so what does the phrase spoiled brat mean to you? Because, growing up, I don't know if I hear that phrase like I used to hear it. Growing up, I lived in a neighborhood, and most of the kids in my neighborhood had 3, 4, or 5 siblings. It was a big family neighborhood, and so we all hung around in there, but we had in particular one of the kids in the neighborhood, no fault of his own, he was an only child, okay? And us other kids were not always very nice to him because I was. The other guys weren't. I was nice. The other guys weren't. And because we thought of him as a spoiled brat, okay? And the spoiled brat thing was actually just our jealousy, our envy of what he was getting more towards the flesh, okay? He always had the best bikes and baseball gloves and shoes and toys of sort, we would struggle to get those sort of things compared to him. And so our way to get back at him was, oh, well, you're spoiled. And I want to think just or play that out a little bit. What does it mean really to be spoiled, right? If you think about spoiled food, it means it's gone bad. It's gone bad. And so spoiling our kids, or anybody for that matter, means you've lost the best flavor of them. You lost what could have been the best potential, and you lost it because maybe you didn't take care of it right. You didn't preserve it right. Okay, you didn't create it right. And so I think it's a really important thing that we talk about, whether we use the phrase spoiled kids or spoiled brats, or the idea of what we're talking about today. Just because you can, should you, when we talk about the only child, and this is not a beat down on the only child, because I worked with so many families that had just one child, and it's so hard. It's even harder to raise an only child in so many ways, because it's so easy to do for them, because you can, right? It's like, well, they've asked me to do this little favor. I could lie to them and tell them I don't have the time or the money, but it's just us here,
right?
So it becomes even harder, and the bringing up of these kids is you actually have to artificially put in restraints so that you don't spoil them, so that you can build more character. And we're going to get into a little bit of what that character would look like.
And we're not here to throw parents under the bus and tell them you're awful people. I don't think it's intentionally trying to hurt a child.
Not at all, no.
And we have 5 children, and so our youngest couple have kind of got the benefit of our learned experiences.
Yeah.
And so, for example, our daughter is a junior in high school, but starting in the 8th grade, she had this dream and this fantasy of prom. She couldn't wait for prom. And she had her own little Pinterest board, and she had all kinds of things. And so when her 8th grade dance came, she had already imagined she was going to get her hair done and her nails done and dress and shoes and all this stuff. And I was like, man, just because she could do that in 8th grade, should she? Because then by the time she's a senior and going to prom, like what is it gonna have to be? The limo and the, the private dinner party? Like I just kind of worry that we're really setting our kids up for higher and higher expectations. And so we laid it out with her. Like when you go to a dance, whether it be a snowball, winter dance, or, an 8th grade dance or whatever, we will buy the dress. Okay. And you could probably wear shoes for a couple of years, but we're not going to go get your hair done and your nails done. And it really was hard because a lot of her friends were having that all done at such an early age. And man, we really set our kids up for just their hands out, and they're expecting more and more and more. And I just don't think it's healthy.
Well, let me add to what you said there. We set our kids up with high expectations, but the high expectations are going to have to come from someone else. It's one thing if you teach your kid to have high expectations and they have to be the ones that work towards fulfilling them, okay? So if I'm going to set myself up to be a state champion swimmer, I'm the one that has to get in the water every day and swim and put in the time. But if I say I'm going to be a state champion swimmer based off of my parents buying me the trophy, that's, and so that's what happens. The high expectations get set on our kids, but none of the work and the resources come from the kids.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets dangerous.
And that's funny that you brought that up, because by the time our daughter last year is working and then going to a dance, she did decide to go spend the money on nails herself, and then found out that was $50 and it lasted a week. And she decided that wasn't really worth the $50.
Right. Yeah.
And it was like, good for her. She's learned, because it was her own money, that it really wasn't worth the expense.
Yeah. So this is where this comes in. So we almost never have new parents coming into us and say, we're spoiling our 3-year-old. We need help with it. That's not what happens, okay? At that age, they're kind of doing their thing, and they're spoiling or overbuying or whatever it is, okay, overindulging their kids. But here's where it comes into us. This is where it becomes crisis and problems. When all of a sudden now we have the young adults, maybe the later teens, maybe the young adults, and we have this just tangible tension in the house where there's a breakdown because the child or young adult is simply over demanding and never happy. Okay. And as you said before, their hand seems to always be out.
Yeah.
And so maybe they're having a problem with the old failure to launch. They can't seem to get out of the house. Maybe they get a job and they quickly leave the job because it's just not right. And so they sit in this sort of unemployment in your basement sort of thing for 3, 4, 5 months, even though you're saying, hey, I think you should get a job. Well, why should they get a job? That things are being taken care of. And so by the time they come to us, there's been this heavy fatigue that sits in where the parents are going, oh, crud.
Yeah.
How do we get out of this?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where we're at today. Like, Linda and I have talked many times before. we deal with these situations, but by the time that comes to us, it's kind of in crisis mode. Isn't it so much better if we can get ahead of this?
Yep.
And we're going to talk in two different fashions today. We're going to get ahead of it and talk about the preventative for especially you younger parents, but we're also going to talk about, so maybe you didn't do things quite the way you should have earlier with the kids, and now you somehow have to get some restoration.
Now you have an entitled brat in your basement.
Ooh, that's harsh.
Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 6 about having that self-discipline. He writes about lawsuits and about believers having conflict and division. He goes on to talk about worshiping other things and cheating and stealing and swindling and sexual immorality and homosexuality and getting drunk. And he warns us, don't be deceived. Like, there's a consequence for all of those things that are not of the Lord. He says those things are not of the Lord, no matter how fun or good it may feel in the moment. 1 Corinthians 6:13, he says, I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. And so he goes on to say, do you not know your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price, and so therefore honor God with your bodies. And so that's what we take in. That's what we do with it. God is saying, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right. So let's talk about prevention.
Yeah.
Let's talk about prevention. So this is going to be geared a little bit towards the people who still feel like they have a chance with the younger kids. Okay.
Everybody has a chance, but
right, a chance at prevention.
Okay.
At prevention. And so the idea here is first we have to face it, and we have to face what that means. Meaning, our children are not going to necessarily know what is best for them, what is right for them, and so this is we have overshot the mark here of saying, kids have rights, kids have all this, kids are entitled to this and that and the other. And the idea of they don't have this thing that you have called wisdom. You know what it's going to take for kids to grow into adults and be successful. And so I can't expect a kid to be able to reason and act like an adult, when they're in that selfish mode of me first, because that's why they're kids, all right? Yeah. And this is our job to grow them through it. So first off, our expectation of assuming the kid knows what is right for him needs to be, we need to go back and figure out really what the difference between the parent and the kid is. And the parent has the job of creating the vision moving forward.
I'm just going to call this out because I think this is really where it comes from. I believe that it's more about, if we're being honest, it's more about us as parents. It's more about us as parents feeling good about ourselves or feeling guilty because maybe mom and dad split up and you don't get to spend a lot of time with them. It's wanting approval or love, especially if you're in a blended family or you're in a divorced family, and it's about what you can do for them. It's our insecurities. It really is, I believe, that we turn into these yes moms and these yes dads. And so I think we really need to really call that out, because we say it's because my child wants it or because they need it or because they can, but I think it's our own insecurities and want to feel that approval from our
So
kiddos.
What you're saying there is, which would be the second part of this, is recognizing your own insecurity, which is now coming through as codependency.
Yeah.
You're needing to give them something just as much to make you feel good. All right. And so this is very common. We see this a lot in the caregiving sort of works that are out there. We see this a lot like in ministry, where the preacher is pretty much dumped his family because he's constantly serving all the people in the church. And it's really, he can say, well, I'm doing God's work, but really it just builds him so much. And so there's this sort of caustic negative impact that comes back. And so it's important for you when you hear this phrase, which gets flipped around a lot, like in the psychology world, of codependency, like, well, what is this doing for me and my relationship with the kids?
Yeah. God did not put us on this earth to serve our children forever. If you go back to our series on the seasons of parenting, it's 0 through 2 that we're serving them, that we're giving them their needs. We're changing their diaper. We're changing their clothes. We're feeding them. We're burping them. We're rocking them. That's the first 2 years of life. But then we shift out of that, where we teach them through our authority what's right, what's wrong, what's delayed gratification? What's self-discipline? Those are the things that we're teaching them in this second season. And then the third season is that we've got to live and model that ourselves so that they see that, because our words mean nothing at that point. They're smart enough to know you say this, but you do that. And so that teenage years is really about, are you the one getting off your phone? Are you going through the Dunkin' line? Do you have to have that new pair of shoes or that new set of golf clubs? Like, are you showing your kids what it looks like to delay that gratification and not always get whatever you want?
Yeah. So that season 2 is when you're actually now, because they're starting, and again, it's not, as we talked about when we did that show, it's not like you become 2 and a switch happens and you, but this is when the transition starts to happen through this time, because it's based on their developmental readiness. So the idea now is when they start to grasp how you guys are functioning as parents, that now is when you start to instill what the values of the home are going to be. And so we've talked about many times, if you want to do well by your kids in terms of creating them into better and healthy adults, you start teaching them the value system, all right? And the value system is something that you predetermine. You don't determine it on the fly, like, oh, I think that might be a good idea. That's where we get into trouble. Instead, if this, like, in our home, we are going to value these things. And so by the time our kids leave, they are going to at least know these basic things about life values, okay? And so prevention says, I want these values established strong and early.
Yep. And that's why when our kids were younger, we were very clear about how a car was going to look like in their future.
Right.
They weren't going to turn 16 and have a big, pretty, brand new car with a bow on it in their driveway. They're going to earn it, and we would match whatever they've saved.
Right.
And so we started that conversation early so that they didn't just go blow all of their money on junk and stupid things. They're saving for a car. And I remember our second oldest, we almost had to get a loan to match the money that he had
Boy
saved.
just kept packing money away and started freaking us out.
Thank God he didn't want to spend it all on a car.
Yeah.
Because we would have been like, oh, well. But that was a way of teaching him, just because we can buy you a car doesn't mean that we're going to, because we want to teach you the value of earning that and valuing it.
Almost always when we get our stuff or buy stuff for our kids or rescue our kids out of certain things, we are doing it in short-term emotional thinking. We're trying to make everybody feel good in that moment. And so one of the next things they'd ask you to do is think of what this looks like in a long-term play out. All right, play it out. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this 16-year-old their car because they've been begging me for this car. Okay, just play it out.
Right.
All right, and play out how that looks in terms of how they're going to take care of it, how they're going to learn how to pay the other associated bills of maintenance and insurance. Play it out, like and there's a possibility that you could buy that kid that car. But there's also then lots of other things that have to go around that. Listen, we are going to purchase this car for you, but here's what it will involve in terms of, and this would be the next thing, it is important to teach our kids reciprocation in relationships. The reciprocation means, you like my quid pro quo, okay?
You're such a lawyer.
Remember the term quid pro quo?
Quid pro quo.
Right?
I can't even say that 3 times.
And so, the idea that you have to do something in order to get something back, okay? And so, and that's not a bad thing. Your kids need to kind of understand. Now, that's not always, because we don't buy everything. Some things are gifts,
right?
But it needs to be stated as a gift. All right, and if we're on a regular basis just handing out, there's no idea of how we reciprocate. And it's like, well, you just gave me this. I just assume it was mine. Versus I'm giving this, but I'm also expecting a little something back from you.
Yeah. Okay, so here's another confession. Okay.
Oh, no.
Because there's people out there who know me and know that, especially if my dad's watching, that I got a brand new car at age 16.
Yeah. I'm still trying to rehab you.
And I used his credit card for gas. And so, I was getting set up to really take advantage of that. And I'm thankful that I married a man who
was broke.
Well, for you to open my eyes of that's really not what we want to teach our kids, that, and thankfully I didn't get too aggressively ungrateful,
Right,
but that possibility was there to really set myself up for ugly failure. And so thank you, Dad, for the blessing. But I also know that the value of earning that is really important. And so just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Right, and just having a vision for what that would look like. And so we're not saying you don't buy your kid a car. What we're saying is play it out in your head as to how you're going to do these kinds of things so that you could still buy them a gift and explain that it's a gift, but it doesn't mean that this is how all of life is going to go. And so there's other places where we're going to expect some reciprocation in the relationship. You know, the idea that when I ask you to help clean up around the house, that there's no payment expected there. I'm asking you to reciprocate for the ways that we have given to you.
And I've had other parents who have bought the child a car because they didn't have any money saved up, but then they expected them to get a job to pay for the insurance or the gas. Or they've let them know, this is your one car. Don't look at me when that one breaks down or something that I'm going to buy you another one. Same thing we did with our kid with their phones. We bought you one phone. And so the next one, if you don't like it and you want to upgrade, is on you. So we kind of let them know, like, this is a gift. We bought this on your 13th birthday, but yet this isn't something you just hand out and expect all the time.
Yeah. Okay, you ready to move into the second part?
Yes.
Okay, so the second part is actually when it gets kind of intense because there's been lots of hurts, there's been tension, things are muddy by the time we get to this part. And so this is the part where now we've actually created, excuse the terminology, we've created the monster, okay?
The entitled brat.
Yeah, and so now we are talking about the young adult or maybe even middle-aged adult. We have plenty of that as well that comes in. And people are going, this is not how we want to live, okay? And so we're going to call this, instead of prevention, we're going to call it restoration. How do we restore, okay? And I have to tell you, you know, when you restore an old house, there's no guarantee that it's ever going to be perfect. It's going to have its old scars on it. And so we don't expect that we're going to have everything bright and shiny and new, and there's not going to be some remnants of the old life that it had. It's a restoration, but it's still worth restoring. It's worth going down the road.
Yeah, and you use this phrase all the time. I thought you were going this direction, is the reset button, you know. And I'm just telling you, our culture today is promoting such an entitled attitude that you owe me and that this is just the beginning and that I should expect that from you. And I can just tell you story after story after story where parents have tried to pull back and try to, you know, put some healthy boundaries up and kind of have some limits. And the child went bonkers. Literally, almost like that little 2-year-old temper tantrum in the grocery store when they didn't get the candy they wanted. I mean, when you're taking a phone away from a 12-year-old that you've just let carte blanche have whatever they want, whenever they want, and now you're saying, nope, the phone is actually mine and I'm going to take it at 9 o'clock and you can have it if you follow A, B, and C, and you haven't done that.
Right.
It does get ugly. And so some parents don't even want to go down that road. And so for them, it's not even worth poking the bear. And I'm just telling you, that does not end well. Then you have the 18-year-old that looks at you like one client had and said, on my 18th birthday, you're going to buy me a tattoo. And like literally telling the kid, the parents, like, this is what I want and this is what you're buying for me and it's going to cost $300 or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's what you're going to have down the road if you don't hit the reset button.
Yeah. I hope that a lot of you are hearing some of that and being shocked, but way too many of you aren't. Way too many of you are going, I've kind of experienced something like that. And again, you know, listen, let's not spend a lot of time beating ourselves up. What we're trying to do is restore because we know how we can now make things better for their life, our kids' life. If I truly do love them and I truly do want something better for them, because all of this is going to impact their relationships, how they raise kids, jobs, employment, all these different things. So you hit the reset, but Hun, a little bit about that reset. This is so hard because it has to be a hard reset. You literally cannot just sort of sneak the reset in because it will be like this creepy little slime mold that just is deep into everything. And so I literally have to open up all the light. I have to shed the light on the darkness, and I have to say to whoever it is that is involved, today we are starting fresh. This is what we have been doing that we don't particularly think is right or good. And so you literally really call it out. And so we talk about these being family meetings, whatever it is, but it's hard. It takes a little bit of prep time. If you have to get some professional help to help you with a mediator or a counselor, do that, because you want to get your mind straight, because as you try to get a logical plan through, your emotions are going to be pulling you back. You're going to be going, oh man, this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard. And the desire to drive through that is going to be really tough to keep up.
Yeah, and I just want to prepare you for the fact that there's some really ugly things if you don't do this. For instance, we have a lot of parents who are letting their child drink in their home and do drugs in their home and have premarital sex in their home and have same-sex attraction relationships in their home. And when you let that cat out of the bag, when you let that cow out of the barn, it is really hard to bring back. And by the way, you need to start with an apology.
Right.
Dad and I, Mom and I are sorry. We had it wrong. And we did some things that we're not proud of. But we're going to need to change some things. And we're sorry. We're sorry that we've set you up for this, expectation that we're going to always let you do this. And we should have never let you drink in our basement. We should have never let you had your boyfriend spend the night. Like, we are sorry. This was our fault, and we've got to do better.
Yeah. Owning that versus saying you're a spoiled brat. It's like, well, no, this is what we've helped create. Yeah. And so it's really, really important to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, once you do that and you understand why you may have done that, so you have to kind of do a little bit of background work and understand that word codependency again. Like, why did I just fall into this so easily? Why were they able to just grab me and make me feel like it's what I need to do to be a good parent? Okay, so I've got to spend some background time figuring myself out that way, all right? But once we do that, we state the new boundaries going forward, okay? And we do this unapologetically. I'm sorry, but from now I'm going to have to. No. I'm not going to say I'm sorry for the new way forward. I'm saying I'm sorry for the old way past. Moving forward, I'm going in to say, this is how we're going to move as we move forward, okay? And this is where you state your new boundaries. And these boundaries are not to be things that you just shoot from the hip with, okay? These boundaries are things, especially when if mom and dad, if you're both involved, we have to have unity here. Linda and I have to be able to present to the kids in a unified fashion, so that, because we know the emotions are coming, all right? So we have to become unified, and then we lay out the new boundaries. Moving forward, this is what we're going to expect on payment of the car, on the phone bill, on gas expenditures, on sleeping in the basement with your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, we lay down that boundary.
Yeah. So I know there's people out there listening who are coming from a divorce home and dealing with blended family or co-parenting issues. And so maybe you and your ex are on totally different pages, okay? So as much as it's in your control in your home, you've got to set those boundaries. And I would communicate with your ex. If you can have any kind of communication at all, relationship, please do, because the child is playing you like a fiddle. And if you can get on the same page and just say, hey, I'm not telling you what you to do in your home, but in our home, this is going to be our new rule, and this is going to be the consequence. Even if you bought the phone, but if they are not following our rules and the boundaries in our home, the phone is going to be put away in our home when they're with us. So I'm just letting you know that. And there is some pushback with that. I know there is. But you've got to say, this is our home, these are our rules, these are our consequences.
Yeah. All right. So hopefully, these things are making some sense to you. Because we talked about, we've already built kind of this monster, we have to understand that it's going to be difficult, all right? And we will oftentimes get some kickback about, well, is this really how you show me love now? Listen, we talk about unconditional love, but love does not mean you buy things and like everything that's going on, okay? We have to have conditions on relationships if there's going to be a healthy love. Okay. Otherwise, we burn people. We upset people. And so it'd be no different that, you love your kids like crazy, but when they're in your home, there's certain conditions of how we're all going to live and interact together. Yep. These conditions need to be stated, and then they need to be met. And so don't apologize for that part.
Yeah. Hebrews 12:11 says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace peace for those who have been trained by it. I'm just telling you, you want a house of peace? This is how you get it. You don't do it just because you can, but because you should. And so please, it's not going to feel good. It's not going to be easy. The earlier you get this right, the better off you are. And we struggled with that when our 3 youngest came into our home through adoption. They were 11, 10, and 7, and they had not had to follow these rules and these boundaries. And so they pushed back every single moment of the day. But man, 7 years later, we have seen a harvest of righteousness just because they know what to expect and they know why. It's not because we didn't love them and didn't want to do for them. It's because we knew that we shouldn't do it.
Yeah, and the work has been heavy.
It has.
It's been
not
heavy.
easy.
It's not been easy, but it's what we choose to get into when we have kids. And I do want to read this scripture because I think it even goes bigger than what's happening in the family immediately. It describes a little bit more about if we just continue to do this as a society, what actually starts to happen. Okay, so this is 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 7. And just you may have heard this before, but just bear with me when we read through this.
By the way, if your Bible is like mine, it has a title on this section. It literally says godlessness in the last day.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is kind of where we are today.
Yeah. And so it says, but understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. Avoid such people. I describe this because this is what the spoiled brat becomes, okay? Like, and we've thrown all kinds of terms out there of the entitlement generation and all of that. That's what this is describing, and it came from how we raised our children, okay? And ultimately, we do have a say in this. Don't say, well, this is just the way the world is. No, you start in your home, and you can do it right away by teaching them the values of God and how God expects us to honor Him. And then now we expect our kids to honor us. Okay,
so we don't have a whole lot of time, and we're wrapping up. But I'm going to uncork a bottle here, and I don't want us to go on this tailspin.
If you can do it in 5 seconds, knock yourself out.
But if you keep going in that verse in 2 Timothy, it talks about how that they get in and take advantage of weak-willed women, and this godlessness and this treachery and this lover of self and pleasure. I believe it's because the dad is not in the home, and the woman feels this weakness and this pressure to please and to be that yes mom. And so can I just say, if we have mom and dad together in the home, working together as a team and united on what is healthy and what they're going to do, not because of what they want, the kids want, but because of what they need, man, mom and dad, we need you desperately.
Yeah. So in our challenge, that is it. We need you, mom and dad. Your kids need you, and they need you to be mom and dad, and you to have a rightful understanding of what mom and dad is. Okay. And so if the challenge needs to be this week that you develop your preventative measures, then great. That's what you need to do this week. If it means you have to go and hit the reset button, then today is that day. It is not down the road that you start this. It means today, and if that means you need to call and get some help, listen, there's not a week that goes by that we don't actually help people with those resets. Like, well, how am I going to do this? Like, it's going to get messy. It's like, yeah, it is. Let's go. Let's roll up our sleeves and get ready to go. So if we can help you work through that challenge, please reach out to us. But please, as a gift to your children and to the rest of the world, please do this.
You know, I hear adults complaining about this all the time, this codependency, this entitlement, this enabling. It's destroying the work ethic and the fabric of our country, I believe. And just because you can doesn't mean you should. So expect pushback, especially from the teens and young adults who are already already kind of connected via social media. And so they're hearing this cultural vibe of, I deserve this, I earned it, I want this, and I want it now. And so really be careful, because the older your child gets and the more they get connected and they hear that, the more pressure you're going to feel from the outside world.
All right. So very good, guys. We hope that this is helpful, especially as we come in to the holiday season when buying gifts and spending money and all these things just is, up at its high level for the year. So I hope this comes in very helpful. You can do this well. And one way to do it is just get a plan and think about it and keep your emotions in check. Okay. Yeah. So if there's any way we can help, please reach out at rocksolidfamilies.org, or our phone is 812-576-7625. Guys, we want to thank you for listening. We want to thank you for sharing these shows. We are pretty much getting blown away more and more by the clients that come to us where somebody shared a show with them that we did that hit them where they needed to be hit in that moment. So we want to thank you guys for that. So keep sharing our shows.
Yeah, these are the messages that I believe families need to hear. So please put it on your wall, share it on social media, let them know this is how we raise a generation of those who love one another and love the Lord more than anything else. So thank you so much for listening to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. They offer a wide selection of high-quality plants, landscaping materials, and home decor. They do amazing high-quality work and can help you transform your indoor and outdoor living spaces into something beautiful. So stop by Casey's Outdoor Solutions today and let them know you appreciate their support for Rock Solid Radio. Visit Casey's today at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana.